Welcome the day, the new morning, with a smile on the face, love in your hearts, and good thoughts in your mind. A very good morning to one and all gathered here for a new beginning. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the National E-Conference. May I now welcome Dr. S. Umamaheshwari, Associate Professor and Head of the Department of Zoology, Tandai Periyar Government Arts and Science College, and the Organizing Secretary of the conference, insight into the current scenario of conservation of natural resources in India, to spread the red carpet of welcome.
Most respected Principal, Dr. J. Sugandhi Madam, Honorable Speakers of this conference, Sri Dr. N. Krishnakumar IFS, Head of the Department, PCCF and Chief Wild Warden, Tamil Nadu, Chairman, State Environmental Impact Assessment Authority, Tamil Nadu, Dr. Ravi Chellam, Wildlife Biologist, CEO, Metastring Foundation and Member Biodiversity Collaborative, Dr. C. Sudhakar Reddy, Scientist, SG and Head, Forest Biodiversity and Ecology Division, Project Director, DBT DOS Biodiversity Project, National Remote Sensing Center, Hyderabad, Dr. Uday Kumar, Director, Tribal Research Institute, Tamil Nadu, Dr. K.P. Raghuram, Benefit Sharing Specialist, National Biodiversity Authority, Government of India, Dr. P. Shankar Ganesh, Associate Professor, BITS Pilani, Hyderabad Campus, India, Dr. Sivu Perumal, Scientist E and Officer in charge, Zoological Survey of India, Andaman and Nicobar Regional Center, Dr. Arun A. Shah, Director, Research and Veterinary Operations, Wildlife SOS India, Dr. Sai Saraswati, Assistant Professor, Coordinator, Nature Club, VIT India, invited speaker, UNDP and UNFCCC, and all the eminent scientists, academicians, and young researchers and students across the nation who have shared this virtual platform for the E-Conference. Good morning to all of you. It's my honor to welcome our beloved principal, who is a dynamic and versatile personality and has always shown keen interest in the development and constructive progress of our institution. I also welcome the experts for making their precious time out and making to this conference more meaningful. On behalf of the organizing committee, I welcome all the resource persons. I welcome Dr. J. Justin, Sri Dr. J. Justin, IFS, National Biodiversity Authority of India, who has extended his support for organizing this conference. I welcome all the participants across the country, professors, scientists, researchers, students from various institutions. And more than 300 participants have been there in this conference. And it's my immense pleasure on behalf of the organizing committee to welcome all of you, and institutions like BCF Banaras Hindu University, Ethiraj College for Women, Tandai Periyar Government Arts and Science College, Dr. Ambedkar Center for Biomedical Research, University of Delhi, Bardasa University, Trichy, Hejjatin College of Arts and Science, Mehrun, Jalgaon, JDB Government Arts College, Kota, JR and Port Blair, Wildlife SOS, Rajputra Society of Natural Society, JS University, Shikodabad, Salim Ali Center for Ornithology and Natural History, Bardiyar University, Tamil Nadu, VMU Kota, Government Degree College for Women, Jagtial, Telangana, Nature for Future, Government College, Gulana, Sajapur, Pangunadu Arts and Science College, Karur, WWF India, Government College, Gulana, Sajapur, Pangunadu Arts and Science College, Tamil Nadu, World Wildlife Fund, India, Housing and Urban Development Department, Karur Vellalar College for Arts and Science for Women, National College Trichy, Rover Engineering College, Tamil Nadu, Government Girls Higher Secondary School, Tottiyam, Sedubadi Government Arts College, Government of Tamil Nadu, Holy Cross College, Trishapalli, Raja Sarfoji College, Tanjavur, PJTS, Agriculture University, National Institute of Plant Health Management, Hyderabad, Government Arts College, Ooty, University of Hong Kong, DKM College for Women, Government Arts College, Karur, Government Arts College, Kulitalai, Sita Lakshmi Ramaswamy College, Trishapalli, Sidhu Kannu, Muru University, Mount Carmel College, Bangalore, Central University of Tamil Nadu, Government NGM PG College, ITAS, Indian Agriculture Research Institute, Wellington, Pundi Pushpan College, Tamil Nadu. and we are very happy to see participants from various institutions without whom this conference would not be a successful one. I especially register my thanks and welcome to all the participants from these institutions. As we all know, India is bestowed with natural resources, and conservation of these resources is the prime need of the hour. With this view, the conference was organized in order to expose our academic fraternity and young sprouting talents to gain insight into the status of conservation of natural resources in India. With this few words, I extend my warm welcome to all the participants for participating in the e-conference on insights into the current scenario of conservation of natural resources in India 2022. I welcome you all once again. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your warm welcome. Great works are performed not by strength, but by perseverance, says Samuel Johnson. I kindly request Dr. J. Suganti, Principal, Thandai Periyar Government Arts and Science College, to deliver the presidential address.
Very good morning to one and all gathered here in the e-conference on insights into the current scenario of conservation of natural resources in India 2022, jointly organized by the Department of Zoology, Thandai Periyar Government Arts and Science College, Tiruchirappalli, and National Biodiversity Authority, Ministry of Environment, Forest, Climate Change, Government of India, Biodiversity Conservation and Foundation, Tiruchirappalli, Tamil Nadu. The thematic areas of conferences are forest and wetland conservation, marine conservation, status of biodiversity conservation in India, anthropogenic rate of wildlife, human-wildlife conflict, indigenous tribal population, traditional knowledge, and their culture. Objectives of the conference: to enlighten the public about the significance of conserving the forest, to highlight the significance of wetland conservation, to know the status of biodiversity conservation in India, to acquire knowledge on impact of forest fire on wildlife, to create awareness of the anthropogenic threat to wildlife, to imbibe a perspectives of coexistence which reduces human-wildlife conflict and enhances biodiversity-based benefit sharing, to know the status of indigenous tribal population, tradition, and culture. There are 300 participants, research scholars, professors, scientists from various institutions, and I like to wish you all the best and congratulations to the Department of Zoology, the head of the department, Dr. Uma Maheshwari ma'am, and the staff members of the department jointly organized is Dr. M. Ramesh, Dr. P. Krishnamurthy, Mrs. Sanjay, Mr. K. Prabhakaran, K. Balasundram, Dr. V. Masilamani, Dr. P. Mohidin Askan Abbas, Dr. Miriam Sezria Vasu, and Dr. K. Raja. And the convener is Dr. A. Kumaraguru, Conservation Research Director, BCF India. I like to congratulate each and everyone on this occasion. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful welcome.
Good morning to each and everyone. I have immense pleasure to introduce the chief guest of this inaugural session of the 2 days national conference, Dr. N. Krishna Kumar, retired IAS officer. He is basically a zoologist with the innocent interest in wildlife. He started his service for conserving, managing, and protecting wildlife for 40 years till now in different organizations and institutions. Dr. N. Krishna Kumar is about his early days at the Bombay Natural History Society, where he started out as a junior research fellow in the 80s. He went on to become the director of the Institute of Forest Genetics and Tree Breeding, Coimbatore, and assistant principal chief and conservator of forest administration, followed by principal chief conservator of forest and head of the forest force in Tamil Nadu state. He undertook research activities in the forest department, during which specialized on forest genetic resources and documented floristic element of solas in Nilgiris. Prepared plans for improvement of watershed, took up urban forestry initiatives, and implementation of Western Ghats Development Program. Amidst 40 years of wildlife experience, he was involved in eight years of wildlife management and research. The major activities include management, one of the largest zoos in the country, Arinyaranna Zoological Park, Vandalur, wherein he set up the Butterfly Conservation Center and Park. Establish and maintain rescue and rehabilitation center for animals from circus. Initiated for the first time zoo classrooms, zoo education programs, zoo veterinary research, and strengthened ex situ conservation research. Also, he served as a second-time chairman, State Environment Impact Assessment Authority, Tamil Nadu State. Member, State Biodiversity Board in Tamil Nadu State, and expert member, River Rejuvenation and Water Conservation of Tamil Nadu State. Member, Policy Research and Research Council, ICFRI. Special interest, FRG, Conservation Biology, Zoo Management, and Forest Research. He is currently functioning as a chairman, RCKFRI presently. At this brief introduction, I request the chief guest, Dr. N. Krishna Kumar, retired IFS officer, to give his inaugural address. Thank you. Thank you, Amanda.
At the outset, let me congratulate the Tandai Periyar Arts and Science College, Trichy, and very particularly the Department of Zoology, the National Biodiversity Authority, and the BCF for having thought of such a wonderful workshop on the title Insight into Current Scenario of Conservation of Natural Resources in India 2022. This topic presumes a lot of importance in this decade of ecosystem restoration, because we know that the world around us is changing very rapidly, particularly in the last 4 to 5 decades. Therefore, to me, this awareness creation to students is very important, and I congratulate the organizing committee. Let me thank Dr. J. Sugandhi, the principal of this very prestigious college, Dr. Uma Maheshwari, Dr. Kumaraguru, my good old friend, and I would always proudly say he's my student too, and the organizing committees for having thought of such a wonderful workshop. I myself am a student of the Government Arts College, and I'm always proud to say that very many students of Government Arts Colleges in Tamil Nadu are in very pivotal positions today, all because of what is called as the dedication of the students, the commitment of the teachers of the college, the principal, and we have a legacy of rich education in government arts colleges, which have brought in so much of students' strength to the nation. I was a student of the Government Arts College, Coimbatore. I remember my teachers with all respect today, who taught me BSc and MSc zoology with endocrinology specialization. I understand that your zoology department is catering to a wide area of research, which includes biotechnology, molecular genetics, aquaculture, sericulture, pharmacology, nanotechnology, biodiversity conservation, bioremediation, entomology. In my span of 36 years, almost 16 years, I've been working in forestry research in various areas. I've also seen the growth of forestry research in the last 4 decades. I'm happy that colleges like this are churning out good research scholars who will become scientists tomorrow. So it is just not only good human beings that Government Arts College is producing, who are all sitting in front of me, but also the future scientists, the future academicians, the future administrators. So for you to take home this message of natural resources conservation in India, and me spending some time with you is always a pleasure. Friends, let me tell you that it is not enough that we think of important days which UN has declared, or the nation has declared, or the state has declared. We all celebrate the Earth Day, the Wildlife Day, the Water Day, the Wetland Day, the Ozone Day. Recently on 21st, we had the International Day of Forests. 22nd, we had the day of International Day of Water Conservation. It is just not enough that UN days are celebrated for a day, remembered for a day, and later forgotten for the whole year. it becomes very important in all of us to see that these important messages are always there in our mind. I find when tomorrow, when you are all in important positions, you will be able to, whatever positions you are, you should be able to contribute back to your environment, to your ecosystem. At least 10% of your time and energy all through your life should be spent for that. This workshop also talks on two important subjects, conservation and sustainable development. Friends, you know that sustainable development is a word that was coined in the Brundtland Commission report 1987. And later, when we had the Rio conference in 1992, this became a very important subject of sustainable development. When we all joined the forest department way back in 80s, we just managed forests just merely for protection. We had some important work of restoration or planting a few species like teak, sandal, or eucalyptus, casuarina. They were very focused towards production forests. But today, the gamut of forestry is totally changed. Forestry is for multi-purpose uses. The science itself has become multidisciplinary, and it has also become transdisciplinary subject. So therefore, there is need for involvement, just not zoologists and botanists. I always say that if there is a college, all the faculties of the college, all the students across faculty should sit and start thinking about environment. Environment is so very important. Sustainable development has three strong pillars called the environmental pillar, the economics, and the socio-cultural pillar. It is based on these three things that the sustainable development goal is framed. When we talk of the Indian forests, I generally call the Indian forests as superheroes, or they are really what is called a Superman. Because not only the Indian forests, but world over, forests provide a lot of goods and services. Forests today are mostly revered for the biodiversity within, the carbon sequestration potential they play, the support that they provide in climate action. They are tremendous stress relievers. More than 1.6 billion people, particularly the poorest of the poor, depend on forests for their livelihood security. 80% of the people in India depend on traditional medicines. They go and pick up some leaf, some bark and twigs for their native medicinal needs. We know that sometimes forestry provides better income in the tune of 30%, much more than agriculture, to the rural poor. Forestry, fisheries, agriculture contributes to almost 17% of the GDP. Therefore, forestry plays a very important role in your livelihood security, in your water security, and also the wood security. That's why I always say water for livelihood security, food security, wood security. The innumerable non-timber forest produce that is available within the forest. So water is important from pencil to paper. As I told you, it is today a solution for the greenhouse gas emissions, the NTFP that you have, and I always deem it very rich because of the trees that it have. World over, it has been estimated there are over 80,000 trees. Many of the trees people do not know. These trees, a few of them are domesticated, and they are called the forest genetic resources. And these forest genetic resources have such an economic use, they have a potential use, and they also have a lot of future use. While all this is happening, we should also say that forests is also under jeopardy when we know that forests are so rich, but something unsustainable is also happening in forestry. While the recent report, 2021 report on the forests brought out by the Forest Survey of India called the FSR is very positive. It says that the forest cover in India is increasing, the mangrove cover is increasing, the carbon stocks are improving, the root stocks are increasing. The forest, because it has not been worked for years, the carbon is so rich in our Indian forests. Yet, I have a strong feeling that sustainable management of forests somewhere is in trouble, because probably forests also have a lot of threats that is happening today to the landscapes. The threats are innumerable, and one can go on counting more than 70 to 80 type of threats that forests, local forests, the regional and the national forest witnesses. They can be fragmentation of forests, there is loss of biodiversity decline, tremendous dependency on forests for water, for soil, for urban expansion. The agriculture expansion itself is taking a big toll on the forests. The industrialization, the pests and diseases that are there within the forest fires, the droughts, and the pandemics, the COVID and the post-COVID scenarios, and what we read about forests world over is also frightening. The wars that we have in place, all this can really fragment the forests. Forests also faces pollution threats, poaching within the forests. There is also sometimes illicit felling. So therefore, patches of destruction is happening, degradation is happening on various counts because of mining, threats like resorts, encroachments, colonization, constructions, plastics. And therefore, forests are witnessing a lot of changes. Animal shifts, river degradation. We are thinking of river rejuvenation. But look at the type of problems that we have. But what is happening within is too much. Everything looks green outside, but what is this green that we have? The invasives are far too many within the forest. And tackling invasives itself has become a very big problem. So what are the challenges that we have today? The challenges are forestry as it is has inadequate investments. Therefore, we are not able to understand the goods and services provided by the forest. The valuation of forests, the values of forests is very poorly understood. People do not have an understanding on the richness of the forest, particularly data documentation. In spite of the fact that there are so many institutes, organizations, and colleges working on wildlife areas, forestry, conservation, somewhere there is so-called gaps, the disconnect, and that is something that is really threatening. So what is really required is to bring in a lot of youth wherever they are and women into this big sector which holds more than 24% of the land area. Forest cover and tree cover, forests and trees put together is something 24 plus, and we are aiming at 33% of the area to be brought under forest and tree cover. 2030 is also called the decade of ecological restoration, ecosystem restoration. Friends, you know, in a conference like this, we should remember that every ecosystem in this country is under threat. May it be the wetland ecosystem, the terrestrial ecosystem, the aerial atmosphere that we're talking of, the mangrove systems, or mountain ecosystems, all of them under some sort of declines. It is not that there is no piece of land that is left untinkered. I often say, we say when it comes to ecological restoration, there are what is called as reference ecosystems. But today, reference ecosystems itself are difficult to find when we talk of ecosystem restoration. The challenge is not for a few of us like the government. We cannot just leave everything to government and say the forest department, it is their responsibility to take care of the forest. Forest today is for all of us. Wildlife is for all of us. The water within is for all of us. The soil, the seed bank within the forest are all for all of us. The future of agriculture, the future of human life, everything depends on the wood supplies that the forests give you, the food supplies that they give you, the NTFP, etc. So much of species have yet to be understood within the forest. The Forest Survey report has definitely told that the forest cover is increasing. The very dense forests are increasing. The moderate forests have shown slight increase in area. But the open forests and the scrublands are definitely increasing. That is not a good trend, because once the open and scrub forests become more, so somewhere the good quality of the forests are reducing. And this is where I think all of us need to work together. I always feel that there is tremendous opportunity for youth to be involved in everything. It is not like even we ourselves, maybe Dr. Kumaraguru or me, we were all in our young days exposed to forestry, wildlife management by good souls who taught us the importance of forests. So we still remain connected. We cannot just think beyond anything beyond forests, wildlife, and conservation. We definitely need to bring in more students. I remember there are the good forest conservation has happened through good advocates, lawyers, and the judges. The courts have always intervened in giving us the best support for forestry cause, the wildlife cause, and for support of animal husbandry, veterinary, or forest ecosystem protection. So therefore, in whatever fields and areas you are in the days to come, which it's all right because the field is open. A zoology student may go to allied areas for his own future. But wherever you are, I would suggest that the students of botany, zoology, maybe English literature, maybe students of economics, all of you should have this pulse and the love for natural resources. Natural resources are fast depleting, and that is what this particular seminar is all about, trying to tell you that your intervention is required. I'm happy to see the nature of research that is going on in your college and universities. I often sit through the research that is happening across the country, forestry research. When 30 years before, when we all entered forestry, we were talking only of a few species. But today, we have more than 2,800 trees in the Indian forest to be talked about. We have so much of wildlife. The national parks, the sanctuaries, they hold innumerable wildlife. The germplasm that India has, we are sitting on green gold, and this definitely needs to be protected for posterity. So I find that the present thought of UN and Government of India on what is called a sustainable development goal is something that each and every student should understand. You all know that there are 17 sustainable development goals. India is a signatory to many of the important international conventions. We have the HE Convention, we have the Paris Agreement, we have the Bond Challenge before us, where 350 million hectares of forest the size of India has to be restored world over for future prosperity, economic security, and ecological prosperity. When all this is to happen, it is important for students to understand the 17 goals and the 169 indicators. When we talk of the goal 1, no poverty, or the goal 2, no hunger, the goal 3, good health and well-being, or goal 4, quality education, 5, gender equality, 6, clean water and sanitation, 7, affordable and green energy, 8, decent work and economic growth, or the 9, industry, innovation and infrastructure, or you talk of goal 10, reduce inequalities, 11 on sustainable cities and communities, 12 on responsible consumption and production, 13 on climate action, 14 on life below water, 15 life on land, 16 peace, justice and strong institutions, and 17 partnerships for our goals. Often there is a misthinking that goal 15, life on land alone, is something that is connected to forests and conservation of freshwater, wetlands, and mountain ecosystems. I can tell you for sure that all these 16 other goals will fail if we just do not have this very important goal 15, life on land. Life on land is connected very intricately with all the other goals. No poverty can be alleviated if you do not have forestry as safety nets. If poverty has to be totally wiped out, then probably the self-help groups that we have around the 170,000 villages in India have to be again strengthened. When you talk of zero hunger, which is a very tall goal, we definitely know that there is so much of food potential within the forest. There is so much of less understood minor timber forest produce, NTFP. All that we know is maybe gooseberry or some bigger fruits that we have. Today, forest farming is becoming a very important subject. Forest insect food is becoming a very important subject in the Northeast. So on all that, we need to work on. The tribal security and the tribal culture can be protected only if they are eliminated out of zero hunger. So therefore, forest is connected. Forest also, when you talk of good health and well-being, we need forests because the surrounding area, even urban forestry, that way becomes important. The rooftop garden or the so-called lungs that we talk of in urban areas, the green lungs. Today is a time when people talk about blue economy, green climate funds. People talk about bioeconomy and green planning, etc. When all this is being talked, it is also very important that we understand sustainable development goals. When you talk of the gender equality, you talk of education. Education today in forestry has become a very big thing. We have very lead institutes, the FRI University, the Indian Council of Forestry Research. They're all looking for good students to take up research opportunities. Then in Tamil Nadu also, the forest department is doing a lot of good research. So all students will have to get associated with something or the other. I'm happy that students have all become part of important groups, the NGO groups or the amateur groups on conservation of butterflies, reptiles, herpetofauna, amphibians. So it's very nice that when you are in college, it is just not only important that you keep your classrooms clean and neat, but you also look at your own college environment and also largely look at what is happening outside. Get deeply involved, because it's time that we rethink deeply about India's natural potential, the natural resources that we have, and see how best you connect yourself. When you talk of any other sustainable development goal, employment opportunity through forest is another very big thing. Today, forestry can provide a lot of employment, not only within the forest but outside also. And the timber trade that you talk of, and the trees outside forests, there is tremendous potential, because already India is timber starved and we are importing a lot of wood. So sometimes if we can go into what is called as cultivation of timber through agroforestry mode, through farm forestry mode, through homestead modes, etc., conservation can again be protected, and the forests that we have can still remain untouched for carbon sequestration and climate change amelioration. Therefore, it is important. And when you talk of climate change, that's a very big challenge, because we have told the world that we, by 2030, will see that our carbon emissions will reduce by 30 to 35%. If that is to happen, then we need to have probably a lot of carbon sinks. Anywhere, even 5 tree is a potential a carbon sink. So that it's able to sequester enough carbon and give the needed energy for the ecosystems. I definitely would not like to talk to you about the oceans, the marine resources that we have, the mangrove resources that we have. Just go around Trichy and see Nagapattinam, Tiruvarur, Tanjavur, all these areas. They are all abundant in natural ecosystems, particularly the mangrove ecosystems and marine resources that we have. So therefore, it is very important for all of us to see, and India definitely has 4 out of the 36 biodiversity hotspots. It becomes important for all of us to associate ourselves. So I find you may be a student of entomology, you may be a student of ecology, whatever you are, you connect yourself with forests. Today, research is varied, and I was just sitting through a few research projects recently. India over excellent work is happening in nanotechnology, in restoration of forest ecology, on invasive species, on microplastics in microplastics in water bodies, and there are also a lot of research happening in soil science, seed science, economics, and sustainable forestry, ecophysiology, agroforestry, etc. It is also important that colleges like you should start small citizen science group to talk about important ecosystems, try to support the farming community, the public at large. College students like you should become the foster parents trying to teach ecology and environment to the school students. That you should take it up on a mission mode. I still remember my own NSS days and our NCC days. They were all the best days, not just that we go there for a little march past followed by a good snacking, maybe we get some breakfast and coffee, but look at the type of productivity. I remember when we went and worked for NSS for 20 or 30 days in a village, the villagers used to cry when we are coming out of the forest. So much of involvement we have. But today, technology has also, though GIS, GPS, all those drone technologies are all there. Technology on a very fast track has taken us out of the touch and feel forestry, the touch and feel biodiversity, the touch and feel for nature. This is what is very important. It's fine that you connect yourself all the time to your mobiles, etc. But somewhere you need to connect yourself at least 20% of the day to nature, to watch out the birds, the butterflies, the beauty around you. Now, this is how you should associate, because nature is around you. You don't have to really go to some national park and sanctuary. I always say one need not search for nature. If you put a few potted plants, butterflies come there. So if you want, you can bring nature to where you are. And that's the way to understand nature. I'm very sure. I'm also happy to see that this workshop, which has been carefully thought out by the zoology department, by NBA support, and also the DCF, will bring in the needed mindsets. Very good deliberations are happening. Excellent speakers have been lined up for talking to you. Try to collect important points on what they say. Some of you may all branch out to important areas. wildlife science, forestry science, natural resource management needs lot of students. There is tremendous scope for you to take up this particular field and connect yourself to see that our Indian forests, our Indian ecosystems and wildlife benefit out of students like you. This sort of a workshop is an eye-opener for you. You should take it very, very seriously and think of your career planning, making use of some concepts that are being discussed today, deliberated, because it is just not here, write and go away, or here and just go away. Everybody today should sit fully through such a workshop to listen to each deliberation, take out good points, and see how best you can mold yourself to become the best green citizen that India definitely needs. Thank you very much for this excellent opportunity, and I wish this workshop all the best, and I wish to see the students of Tandai Periyar College coming out in the best streams of life in the days to come. Thank you very much to the organizing committee. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are proud to know that you are a student of Government College and have 4 decades of forestry research experience. So thank you for highlighting the students to contribute to environmental protection and emphasizing on multi-purpose usage of forests and participation of the teaching fraternity and the students in forest conservation, and highlighting on environmental pillars, economics and the social cultural pillars. And the forest has been exploited for income generation purpose. And I also thank you for emphasizing on wood and water security and conservation of forest resources. And it's interesting to know that there is an increase in the forest cover and mangrove cover and rootstock increase. And the threats to forest like forest fires, pandemics, wars, poaching have been a major bottleneck in the conservation of forests, and several challenges are there in forests, which you have emphasized on. Inadequate investment valuation of forests has been poorly understood on data documentation, and there are gaps that disconnect the forest conservation, which are threatening. So thank you very much, sir, for highlighting us in this field. And it is really a challenge, not only for the government, and each one of us will have to save our nation and protect this beautiful earth and maintain the delicate ecological balance of the earth. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Thanks for joining, sir.
Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtue, but also the parent of all others. May I now invite Dr. A. Kumaraguru, Conservation Research Director, BCF India, and the foundation and member of Satyamangalam Tiger Reserve, NTCA, Government of India, to express the word of gratitude.
Very good morning, all of you. First of all, I would like to thank each one of you for joining this two-day National Level E-Conference 2022. I feel great proud of you to say that this conference has been the second row by our organizers and has chronicled as huge success previously. The aim of the conference is to enlighten the young minds and promote their participations at all levels of conservation of natural resources. I extended a very warm welcome to all the renowned speakers and delegates who took out their valuable time and joined us today be a part of this conference. We are honored to have you all with us. Thank you, sir, once again for joining. I would like to offer my gratitudes and regards to all the peoples who made this conference functional. The theme of insight into the current scenario of conservation of natural resources in India is based upon the dynamically challenging perspective of conservation, which will definitely shape the students' thinking and perceptions of their impact of individuals' actions and its impact on the field of conservation. This conference will focus comprehensively on forest ecosystem, marine ecosystem, and nurturing biodiversity of all the aspects. Even though this conference is the marker of the success of our consistent strive for conservation, it is made possible by the collaboration of the like-minded people. Let us extend the learning, thinking, and action by extending the collaborative circle for the cause of conservation of our planet. With this view, we as organizer had created a space for the opportunity and to meet some of the brilliant minds of the country who become the chief guest of these occasions. With all the words, I am extremely delighted pronounce the chief guest of the day, who is none of than our PCCF and HOD of Forest Department in Tamil Nadu, retired Dr. N. Krishna Kumar IFS. I also wholeheartedly welcome to other eminent guests, our Dr. Ravi Chellam, lineman of India, and adopted tree initiative started at VIT and Vellore campus by Dr. Sai Saraswati, and one of the top 100 scientists in the world, Dr. C. Sudhakar Reddy from ISRO, and one of the person is a person can able to extend the benefit and sharing the benefit from biodiversity. Dr. K.P. Raghuram from National Biodiversity Authority, and Dr. P. Shankar Ganesh from the BITS Planning Campus, Hyderabad, especially in marine ecosystem, and the person in Andaman Biodiversity Authority, Dr. Sivaperumal, is the person in documenting all flora fauna in the Andaman Nicobar Islands on behalf of the Zoological Survey of India, and Dr. Arun Shah is a pure veterinary science as well as the biologist from the Wildlife SOS, and Dr. Uday Kumar from the Tribal Research Institute, and last but not least, and this conference organizing secretary, especially Dr. S. Maheshwari, and principal ma'am, Dr. J. Shuganti ma'am, the organizing committee members of our EBR college, respected professors, and many of our press delegates and BCF India team members and secretary, Mr. Thirinjanam and Mr. Muhammad Tariq. I also welcome all the speakers and eminent delegates who have joined us today. I guarantee that the conference will be productive and worth your precious time. Thank you all once again.
Thank you, sir, for your heartfelt gratitude. May I now welcome Dr. Miriam Cecilia Vassal, Assistant Professor, Department of Zoology, Tandai Periyar Government Arts and Science College, Trichy, to introduce our speaker of the first technical session, Dr. Ravi Chellam, wildlife biologist, CEO, MetaString Foundation and member, Biodiversity Collaborative, on the topic, an overview of conservation of large cats in India.
It is with great joy that I introduce Dr. Ravi Chellam. Dr. Ravi is a wildlife biologist and conservation scientist who has been involved with research, education, outreach, and conservation of biodiversity since the early 1980s. In his career, he has worked with many institutions, including the Wildlife Institute of India, United Nations Development Programme, Ashoka Trust for Research in Ecology and Environment, Wildlife Conservation Society, Madras Crocodile Bank Trust, Foundation for Ecological Security and Greenpeace India, many of these in leadership positions. He has studied the Asiatic lions in Gir Forest for his PhD and has been involved with research and conservation of lions since 1985. His work includes field research, surveys, and preparing a plan to translocate and establish a second population of free-ranging lions in India. He served as an expert scientific advisor to the Forest Bench of the Supreme Court of India in 2012. For about a decade, he was the research coordinator of the Wildlife Institute of India. He has been involved in governance roles with several NGOs and has published extensively, both academically as well as in more publicly accessible media, works closely with the government on policy matters, served on a few government committees and several academic and public talks. He is currently CEO of MetaString Foundation, member of the Biodiversity Collaborative, and is closely involved with the National Mission on Biodiversity and Human Well-being. It is indeed our privilege and honor to have such a multifaceted person with us today. I now invite Dr. Ravi Chellam to deliver his lecture on an overview of the conservation of large cats in India. Dr. Ravi Chellam.
I said, good morning. Thank you for the invitation to make a presentation and talk to all of you, and also for that very warm welcome and introduction. I'm going to be talking about large cats, but before I get into that, I want all of us to deeply reflect on something that's been an inspiration and a guidance for me. This is a statement I read when I was in school. Rachel Carson is a very pioneering ecologist. She's the one who wrote the book Silent Spring, which in many ways sparked the global environment movement. It's only 5 words. In nature, nothing exists alone. I don't want to debate this, discuss this. I just want you to know about what Rachel has said and keep that in your mind. We often think that because we have technology, because we have concrete buildings, we are not part of nature, that we can somehow master and conquer nature. Nothing can be further from the truth. And if the pandemic has taught us anything at all, it should be that human beings have to learn to respect, coexist, and live in cooperation and as part of nature, and not try and destroy nature. The 5 cats that we will discuss today are the Asiatic lion, the common leopard, the snow leopard, the tiger, and the plans to introduce African cheetah in India. Now we're talking about conservation status. Very often I find that most people have very different ideas about what conservation is. They're fairly standard definitions of what conservation is supposed to be, how it should be practiced, and what the objectives of conservation are. Typically, conservation aims to protect species from extinction, mainly because the current state of extinction is not natural, it's caused by human action. And as part of prevention of extinction, because all forms of life require habitats, we have to also focus on maintaining and restoring habitats. And this will include what are called as corridors, habitat corridors, which connect various habitats. And this will result in enhancing ecosystem services, and in a feedback loop, end up also protecting biodiversity. So from this, you understand there are biological aspects to this endeavor. Because habitat is not all living matter, there are also fairly significant abiotic elements that one needs to address. And it's not just static species, it's ecosystem processes, long-term, some of which includes evolution. And this is all set in what is the current new geological age, the Anthropocene, where human beings are changing the very nature of life on Earth. And one of those drivers of that change, which is in a very negative way, is climate change. What are the types of conservation actions we can take? One is, of course, to protect sites, an area. It can be up in the mountain, it can be desert habitats, it can be marine habitats, freshwater habitats, forest habitats, grassland, any kind of natural native habitats. Protection and management is an important element. And we've already discussed about connectivity. Then ensuring if there is degradation, there is enough resources that are made available, prevention of poaching and hunting, which is direct protection of species. And due to human action, there are now dozens, if not hundreds, of invasive species that don't belong to India, who invaded habitats, all kinds of habitats. Lantana is a very good example, thereby in its own way causing extinction of native species. So dealing with invasive species is also an important conservation action. Reintroduction we'll talk about a bit. Captive breeding can also feed into conservation. But conservation doesn't take place in vacuum. It, especially in a country like India, where we're dealing with a population of 1.3 billion people, millions of whom continue to live in natural habitats, including forests, who depend on nature for their daily physical existence, cultural enrichment, as well as livelihoods. Education and awareness can also contribute to conservation. Enacting proper laws, drawing up and implementing proper policies are equally important. And let's not forget, people and nature and biodiversity are constantly interacting. So we have to look after the livelihoods and economic well-being so that people by themselves see the value of conservation. The other question to ask in the broad area of conservation is conservation about protecting every single individual plant or individual animal? Or is it about protecting populations of species? Or does it also include protection of habitats? When do we say conservation has succeeded? In 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 25 years, in 100 years? What kind of time frames should we plan and work with? Should biologists and conservationists also consider issues related to human rights, justice, and inclusivity in terms of local population? What are the true costs of conservation? And who really bears these costs? And who reaps the benefits? These are all questions that very often are not even discussed when people work in conservation. Lions, as many of you would know, are the only social cat. No other cats are social. They live in groups called prides. Prides are related females on their young, and they can range in size anything from 3 to maybe even up to 30, 40 lions. They come in various ages. So you'll have grandmothers, mothers, aunts, sisters, children, and young ones, cubs. So from a few days old to even 12 to 13-year-old animals form a pride. The males live in their own groups. They are called coalitions. Male coalitions can range in size from 2 to up to 7, though that large size is unusual. These coalitions associate with prides and are not permanent members of the pride. The role of the males is to patrol and protect the territory so that the females are not affected from other non-pride males. So these males move a lot overnight. And the lions of Gir are quite special in many ways because this is among the few population of lions which actually live in a forest. If you're watching on Discovery or Animal Planet or National Geographic channels, when you see videos of lions from Africa, you see them in savannas and open habitats. The lions of Gir are primarily living in dry deciduous forests. There are patches of grassland and savanna thorn forest. And they also feed primarily on deer. Cheetal and sambar form a significant part of their prey. They do kill the occasional nilgai, and they also take livestock. And here you can see a pride feeding on cheetal. Here, instance of lion feeding on a buffalo, and here on a cattle, on a cow. Now, lions used to live through large parts of Asia. You can see lions evolved in Africa here, and then through a process of natural dispersal, moved through much of North and Central and Western India. But because of human action, largely hunting, lions today are restricted to in and around the Gir forest in Saurashtra Peninsula of Gujarat. You can see from this table, about 140 years ago, lions very nearly went extinct. 1880, the number quoted is less than 12. In 1913, it's about 20. But the case of conservation of lions in India is something that we all need to be proud of. It's been an extremely successful program. And today, the population stands at about 674. So you saw 1990 to 84, and then 1995, 2000, 2005, 2010, 15, 20. So you can see that the population has been constantly increasing. Not only has the lion numbers been increasing, you can also see the area that they are occupying. Currently, it's estimated they are occupying roughly 30,000 square kilometers. The most recent estimate puts the number at about 674 lions occupying about 30,000 square kilometers. But the protected area is only about 1,500 square kilometers. So which means the vast majority of where the lions are found are not within the protected area and outside the protected area. Agricultural fields, roads, in some cases, go downs, people's homes. I mean, if you search the internet, there are dozens and dozens of videos of lions. And I will show you one such video, which doesn't look like wildlife habitat at all. Lions, both within as well as outside the protected area, live with people. This is a photograph of Maldaris, the local graziers who graze largely buffaloes in the forest, and they live in simple thorn-enclosed settlements like this, called a nest. Now, here's a map to give you a sense of what I mean by lion distribution outside. So the top left, you see the Gir protected area, which is the 1,500 square kilometers, but this larger area is the 30,000 square kilometers in which lions are found. Here is a better map to explain that. You can see that roughly only about 50% of the lion population is found within the protected area. The rest of the lions are largely in human-dominated habitats. Something for all of you to keep in mind as we discuss further. So this is not an unusual sight. A lioness resting by a roadside, a village roadside. And what do you see in the background? Two people on a motorcycle, right? I mean, we are used to seeing goats and sheep and cattle on our roads. It's not normal for most of us to see a large carnivore like a lion like this. This can lead to conflict. If you are surprised by a lion on the road, you could fall down, then the lion could attack you. You know, all kinds of tragedies could occur. When lions, both inside, because there are 3 railway tracks and multiple roads going through, and definitely outside, have to deal with crossings like this. Obviously, most human beings lack traffic sense. How do you expect a lion to have traffic sense? So almost every year, 1 or 2 lions get killed by road traffic or railway traffic. This is a CCTV footage from a Junagadh hotel. You can see the date and the time to the top left corner. Watch carefully. This is not a robber you're going to see. This is a wild lion. Now watch the security guard. He was sleeping. He probably heard something on the gate. He doesn't see anything now. He goes back to rest. Again, he hears the door, the gate. But the important thing is not the security guard's reaction. The important thing is, in a completely lit, busy road, you have a wild lion coming through. Now, the second video, this is from Africa. So this is a case of canine distemper, and that's how quickly the disease kills. Gir has had fairly significant mortality rates. This is a report of June 2020. In the first 5 months of 2020, 92 lions had died. In 2018, there was a massive outbreak of canine distemper virus, and dozens of lions had died. Again, keep this in mind. We will discuss this later. The big thing with lions, the challenge we are facing with lions, is that while conservation has succeeded, from less than 20 animals, we have 700 or more lions now. All the lions are occurring in a single habitat. And my PhD research was trying to find out how to translocate these lions to establish a second home for them, a free-ranging habitat for them. Unfortunately, this has got enmeshed with politics. The Gujarat State Assembly, across political parties, has passed a resolution saying they will not allow lions to move out of Gujarat. They've used emotional things like, oh, it's Gujarati pride. Lions are Gujarati pride. How can we let go of our pride? And there's really no attempt to use science, data, and debate this in an open and informed manner. The ecological and conservation arguments they present are very limited, motivated, and flawed. And there has been no willingness to engage with facts or reason. And in fact, within the government and even public of Gujarat, I notice a fairly strong atmosphere of fear. There have been large-scale failures on behalf of the Ministry of Environment and Forest Government of India, Gujarat Forest Department, and Madhya Pradesh State Forest Department. A public-spirited citizen filed what's called as a public interest litigation in the Supreme Court. This came up for hearing, and that's when I was asked to serve as an expert advisor, a scientific advisor. The Supreme Court passed a judgment ordering the translocation of lions. It's a wonderful judgment. Anybody interested, I'm more than happy to share. And as part of that judgment, they also said cheetahs from Africa should not be introduced in Kuno. Kuno is a patch of forest, a large patch of forest in northwestern Madhya Pradesh. And they very clearly said the National Wildlife Action Plan prioritizes translocation of lions, and hence we should implement it. And it said no state, organization, or person can claim ownership or possession over wild animals in the forest. So this was with reference to Gujarat government saying that the lions belong to them. Animals in the wild are properties of the nation for which no state can claim ownership. And the state duty is to protect the wildlife and conserve it for ensuring the ecological and environmental security of the country. So these are all exact quotes from the judgment. What else do they say? Preservation of an endangered species for which we have to apply the species best interest standard, which means what is best for the species and not what is best for the government or the local people. And as I said, the order of MOE to introduce African cheetahs in Kuno cannot stand in the eye of law, and the same is quashed. But what is the current status? It is going to be now 9 years since the order was passed. An expert committee was constituted, of which I'm a member. Kuno is ready. 24 villages with more than 1,500 families have been relocated. The prey base has increased tremendously. Management capacity has been built. The area has been extended into a national park, but there's still no sign of a lion. Seeing this, 3 years after the judgment, another public-spirited citizen filed a contempt petition. That came up for hearing, but the government got away quite easily by saying we will hold meetings. And this was all in 2018. 4 years has gone, nothing has happened. In fact, the expert committee has not even met in the last 6 years. The last meeting was December 2016. The whole thing is a stalemate. As I said, in 2018, lion mortality is significant and continues to be. And you saw from the video, no external injury, the lion looked healthy, and in a matter of minutes, it just falls down and dies. And that is how canine distemper operates. So that's the lion story. Now, let's talk about the common leopard. Common leopard is probably the most widespread wild cat in India. It is also very arboreal, which means it's very comfortable living in trees. And it's more recently that the leopard population is being estimated as part of the tiger population estimation. And as you can see from the graphic, in 2014, it was about 8,000 leopards. In 2018, it's about 13,000 leopards. It doesn't mean that the population has actually doubled. It is also because they're now improving their methods, they're covering more areas. And even this is an underestimate because these are only in tiger habitats. Leopards are found in Gib. There are probably 300-400 leopards in Gib. Leopards are also found outside protected areas. They're found outside Bangalore. They're found in Sanjay Gandhi National Park outside Bombay and most other urban, semi-urban, rural habitats. So this is the minimum population of leopards in the country. You can see from this map, as I said, very widely distributed, but this is only from tiger habitats. The blank spaces doesn't mean they are having no leopards. But these leopards also face threats. Historically, from trophy hunting, there are estimates that 150,000 leopards could have been shot as part of shikar. More recently, leopards face large-scale habitat destruction, primarily from mining and quarrying in hilly habitats for minerals like granite and marble. They like undulating habitat. Overall, there has been a decline in prey population, especially outside protected areas. And being a large carnivore, they do need prey. But leopards have adapted. They often kill domestic dogs. They're able to manage with smaller prey, sometimes even rodents. So leopards continue to, in that sense, thrive. There is still some poaching and because of the illegal demand. And snares set for prey animals, leopards get caught. And leopards, probably in the large cats, figure highest in terms of conflict. So this provides, even though the population of leopards exceeds that of other large cats, because they are found significantly in areas outside protected areas, get into conflict, their conservation status is threatened. Here is an unfortunate leopard which got run over, and you can see the background. You see multi-storied apartment. This is just outside Bangalore. So it's one of those ring roads. So with increasing traffic, with roads going in all over the place, with the speed of traffic increasing, the leopards are nocturnal. They have to cross these places and they get knocked down. Especially in urban areas, you're finding afforestation taking place, and that creates leopard habitat that enables them to move closer and closer to human population. And with increased use of night light and CCTV cameras, people get to know about leopards, and then they feel uneasy and insecure, and the occasional conflict, and then you know what can happen. Also, the more and more they come in touch with our livestock and human habitations, the threat of diseases increases, especially things like canine distemper virus, because they also feed a lot on stray dogs which are not vaccinated. There is an increasing focus on leopard population, and the fear is it will be uncontrolled and go down the same road as tiger population. I don't know how many of you have seen at least photographs, if not actually experienced tiger tourism, especially in areas like Ranthambore, where 10, 15 vehicles can surround a single tiger. And that means there are about 200 people looking at the animal. The animal is kind of stressed with so many people looking at it and so on and so forth. So its natural behavior gets affected. These are not unusual, just that taking pictures like this might be unusual. Here is a leopard spooked daytime from a multi-storied college falling down. And sometimes when conflict gets beyond control, people do take law into their land, into their hand, and end up killing animal like this. And when I say leopards live in close proximity to human beings, you've seen dead animals. Here's a photograph of a live animal in Bombay. In the background, you see well-lit apartments, and here is a leopard walking on a boundary wall. Currently, India doesn't have a special policy or a program for leopard. Only the government of Rajasthan has recently, less than 5 years ago, launched a project called Project Leopard, which is focused on minimizing conflict, trying to connect leopard habitats, trying to protect leopard habitats, and also ensure that local people can gain from leopard tourism. The third cat we look at is snow leopard. I doubt if any of us in the audience have had the opportunity to even see a snow leopard in captivity. It is a very elusive cat, even when it is ahead of you in a natural setting. It's so well camouflaged, as I will show you, it's difficult to see it. But India in that way is very remarkable to have these 5 species of large cats which span a variety of habitats. Snow leopard distribution here is marked in white that you see, the color of snow, occurs largely in a contiguous nature, which is good for them. It is obviously a high altitude animal. So these habitats are unfragmented. It's connected across countries. Wild snow leopards are currently found in 12 countries. Here is a nice frontal image of the animal, shows some of its unique ecological adaptation. Look at how thick the tail is. It actually uses it like we use a muffler. It wraps it around its face, especially its nose, to cut out the wind, and when it's sleeping, to keep itself warm. The paws are large and well padded so that they can deal with the snow on the ground. And the snow leopards are the smallest of the large cats. A big adult will not weigh more than 35 or 40 kilograms. A big male lion can weigh 220, 230 kilograms. A big male leopard can weigh up to 80, 85 kilograms. So a quick tour of what the habitat of a snow leopard looks. It is not just mountains. It's quite diverse, as you would see, across altitudes. But it's open. It doesn't quite get into forest areas. So above the tree line and below the snow line is where you have them. It's seasonal. Areas like this get flooded and turn green soon after the snow melt and the rainy season, but then dry up very soon after that. And they have to deal with snow on the ground for several months. And that's why they have those unique adaptations. Excellent predators. They have more than 15 prey species. And here you can see a snow leopard feeding on a wild kill. They can bring down prey more than 3 times their weight. With the advent of modern technology, GPS collars, satellite collars, camera traps, it's been able to find more and more about ecology of snow leopards in the last few years, in the last 10, 15 years. Here, a snow leopard is taking a selfie. And like with tigers and leopards, their body markings are unique. So the spot patterns can be used to identify them, and thereby estimate their population. And as I said, radio telemetry has also come in, and this has yielded us very unique view on the lives of these animals. So you see a collared leopard on the top, and below are estimates of its home ranges. Each dot is a location, and based on that, we build maps of their home ranges. And look at the size of the home range, 1,600 square kilometers. I mean, can you even imagine? That's roughly 40 by 40, not roughly, 40 by 40 square kilometers. Enormous range for an animal, but it's living in a harsh habitat with low prey density, and hence it needs that kind of area. The model for snow leopard conservation is very different from the model that's been used especially for tigers. It is not PA-centric, but it is landscape-centric. Simply because if you need, one snow leopard needs 1,600 square kilometers, and our average size of a protected area in India is only 300 square kilometers, how are we going to conserve snow leopards? So you see a map of India, the northern Himalayan area, which is the primary habitat for snow leopards in India. It is contiguous to habitats that extend into Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bhutan, Nepal, China. So this is, and it then goes up into Central Asia, Mongolia, and so on and so forth. But even in these habitats, these animals are facing threats. They get into conflict. Here, to the left, you see a snow leopard which has gone into a frenzy after getting into a sheep enclosure and killed multiple sheep. And retaliatory killing, the animal can get killed. Sometimes snow leopards are also poached for their wonderful pelt or skin. And now, with the rush to develop, we are putting more and more roads into these inaccessible habitats. That means with it comes its own set of threats. More access means more people, means more unruly elements. And of course, we've already seen how common leopards get knocked down by traffic. Similarly, snow leopards will also get knocked down by traffic. Then there is the military geopolitics that is happening there. These are all areas where there is tension, which means more and more warfare, firing. So when all this firing happens, obviously local ecology, local wildlife gets affected. And these kind of enormous civil engineering projects, which again fragment and degrade their habitats. Well, it's not just military action that creates problems. Tourism is also enormously increased. You can see post 2010 that graph showing you that enormous increase. I mean, it's tripled, quadrupled the number of tourists. And dogs are also, unfortunately, a huge threat for snow leopards. Here you can see how feral dogs can be a problem. And if you look closely, there is a dog facing off with a snow leopard. I'm going to zoom in there. And if there are multiple dogs, the snow leopard can end up getting killed. And this is what tourism often leaves behind, which also helps stray dogs. So it's an enormous kind of a challenge that has come up on this habitat in a very short period of time. Not to mention climate change. With climate change, global warming, a lot of the snow is melting, you're finding glaciers retreating. All of that is going to have major hydrological and environmental impacts, not only physically, but on the prey population, on the plant population, and thereby on the snow leopard population also. Now, if you look toward the center of the picture, you'll see a snow leopard. I'll use my pointer to. And in the background is a village. So even in these remote areas, there are people there. So snow leopards and people are also interacting quite regularly. And hence, protected areas, both from the range size and with this level of interaction, are just not enough. And we have to ensure ground level participation, get people to appreciate and look at snow leopard as a gift, as something of value, and not as a problem. Certain patches would need to be grazing free if prey population are to survive and proliferate and exist. Conflict management has to be a priority so that local people do not end up paying the cost of conservation. And there are many, many ways of helping local livelihoods, tourism, products, and so on and so forth. And obviously, as always, education and awareness will always assist in this thing. Recognizing this, the Government of India has launched a landscape level conservation program. Even in this picture, it's a night camera trap picture. You see in the background the lights of the village, and in the foreground a snow leopard. And this is the mission statement of Project Snow Leopard of Government of India, launched now about 13 years ago, to safeguard and conserve India's unique natural heritage of high altitude wild populations and their habitats by promoting conservation through participatory policies and action. So it's not just snow leopard, it's a whole suite of wildlife populations and habitats. Some interesting initiatives, some of which is already on the ground. Pashmina, you might have heard, is a very valuable fiber. There is an attempt to make conservation linked with Pashmina trade. Homestays are growing up very well. This has been well managed, and local people are definitely seeing benefits from community-based tourism. So the motto really should be not just with snow leopard, with all wildlife and all nature and all biodiversity, is to make them more valuable alive than dead. So then the incentive to kill them would definitely go down. Briefly, I'll focus on our national animal, the tiger. This is something well known, which is why I'm trying to, in the interest of time, keep it brief. So the same map I showed you earlier, the white was snow leopard, which you will see contiguous. The orange and yellow that you see is tigers. Snow leopards also 12 countries, tigers also 12 countries, but you see how fragmented the tiger population is. It's because vast areas of former tiger habitat, the tiger has become locally extinct, including in India. So you see a population in the Western Ghats, you see a population in Central Eastern India, you see a population in Northeast India, one isolated in Sundarbans across India and Sundarbans, and then one in the Himalayan foothills, Tarai, that arc extending from Himachal Pradesh all the way into kind of where else? Uttarakhand and Assam and so on. Now, Project Tiger was, in some sense, the first species-based large cat conservation project, launched in 1973 with 9 tiger reserves, roughly about 18,000 square kilometers was covered. So in the last 50 years, you see 9 tiger reserves has multiplied to 50 tiger reserves, and about from 18,000 square kilometers, the protected areas under the tiger reserves have gone up to 73,000 square kilometers. Unfortunately, we've had cases where even in tiger reserves, tiger populations have gone extinct. Sariska and Panna are good examples of that. In 2006, the Project Tiger got an elevation, a promotion. It now is a statutory body called the National Tiger Conservation Authority, or NTCA. And because in Sariska and Panna, the tigers went extinct, the official numbers till they went extinct, Sariska is supposed to have 20 tigers or something. One day it had 20 tigers, next day it had 0 tigers. Simply because the government machinery was doing it in a way to protect itself and not reflect the truth. It was not done scientifically, it was not done transparently. So you had this really queer situation, a very peculiar situation, where one day the tiger reserve had lots of tigers and the next day it had 0 tigers. And that time, there was a fairly outdated method also of estimating tiger population. More science has since been injected, and these population estimates that we now have are much more dependable. And you can see since 2006, the tiger population has grown from 1,400 odd animals to nearly 3,000. Again, there's a case of tiger population having doubled. And the estimated annual growth rate of tiger population is about 6%. India has plenty to be proud of overall in conservation, and definitely with Project Tiger, because it's in many ways the world's largest conservation project in terms of time, space, investment. India holds 80% of the global tiger population, which represents 60% of its genetic variation. So, but still 15 to 30% of the tiger population is outside protected areas. Important thing to remember. Many of the tiger reserves are small and isolated, which mean it will be resulting in inbreeding. The challenges that Project Tiger is currently facing is, as populations grow, tigers are unable to disperse because they live in isolated habitats. There is increasing conflict. Canine distemper virus and other diseases are being reported from tigers. And from the outside the government system, the challenges we face is very often tiger habitats to do research are very, very difficult. The tiger conservation action so far has been antagonistic to local communities. They've been beating on single points, saying for tigers to survive, local communities have to move. We need people-free habitats. And the Forest Rights Act, which is a very enabling legislation supportive of local communities, has not yet been implemented in tiger habitats. But there are estimates that we still have about 200,000 square kilometers of potential tiger habitat, which could, if well managed, host anything from 5 to 10,000 tigers. But it's all a question of what we plan, how we manage, what kind of investments we make. But even in tiger reserves, you find in the name of development things like this. So after a national highway, the Madhya Pradesh State Highway Road Agency is also building roads which cut through corridor between Satpura and Pench, which are 2 tiger reserves. Whatever engineering alternatives we give, a road with traffic, pollution is not good for any conservation, definitely for conservation of a large animal like tigers. The final cat we'll talk about, this is, I don't know how many of you have seen a picture of cheetahs in India, wild cheetahs in India. This is an archival photograph from the Deccan of 3 cheetahs. There has been now a big push. Earlier in January, the government announced the plan to introduce cheetah, and the goal is to establish a viable cheetah metapopulation, and the expectation is that the cheetah will perform its functional role as a top predator. I am very strongly critical of this because I believe this will not happen. Cheetah is an animal which needs open habitat, and that too, like the snow leopard, it needs it in the hundreds of thousands of square kilometers. Small habitats will not be sufficient for cheetah. So even if the cheetahs brought from Namibia survive, even as per their official estimates, it will take 15 years for the population to grow to be 50 at best. So, and every year, the requirement is more than 1 crore rupees of investment. If you are serious about grassland protection, that a level of investment should be directed directly at grasslands rather than bringing cheetahs from Africa. So to conclude, when we look at how policies and activities have taken place for conserving large cats in India, but for the case of snow leopard, our approach lacks landscape approach, which means areas outside protected areas get left out. 50% of the lion population, 50% of the leopard population, 30% of the tiger population, and again 50 or more percent of the snow leopard population occur outside protected areas. If you don't have some way to manage habitats outside protected areas, how are we going to conserve these animals? And if you don't have connectivity through habitat corridors, how in the long term will these populations connect, ensure gene flow so that inbreeding is avoided? Our approach lacks inclusivity. It is an expert-driven approach. It's an official approach. Often it's a black box approach. It lacks transparency and accountability, which is why it led to disasters like Sariska and Panna. I will strongly push for partnership when we plan conservation, especially with local communities, because they have a deep understanding and traditional knowledge of what's happening and cultural practices which are often very supportive of conservation. And the Forest Rights Act has very strong provisions for conservation and hence should be seriously considered and enacted. Our development model is still built on destroying the environment and destroying nature. If you're serious about conservation, especially of animals like these large cats, that has to change. We can't keep saying we are continuing to develop. This development model is not sustainable. And from a monitoring perspective, we as a country have an unhealthy focus just on numbers. So if a tiger population has grown from 10 to 20, we think we have succeeded. But these numbers don't mean anything if habitats are not conserved, if habitat connectivity is not conserved, if conflict is not managed properly. So we need a much more comprehensive and robust way to monitor conservation in India. And India is home to to multitude of cultural practices which are strongly supportive of nature. And our official conservation policy, very unfortunately, does not take this into consideration. And we need to rethink that. Here is a sad case where a leopard has been killed. But look at the manner in which this old woman is reacting to a dead leopard. She's garlanded it, she's praying to it. So these are all important facets of human behavior, of human culture that needs to be appreciated, documented, understood, and incorporated into our official policy. We believe in fencing off people, fencing off wildlife. We cannot do that because especially when there are flowing rivers, there's no way you're going to be able to fence that. But even in other cases, you can see what tragic results can happen when we do these kind of physical fencing. As I said, even outside there is a problem, but this is on the border of Agir National Park and Wildlife Sanctuary, highly endangered species. They still have to navigate traffic. Thank you very much. If there's time for questions, I would like to take. I just want to acknowledge all these people for all the support throughout the decades of my work, and some of them have also contributed to the preparation of this presentation. Thank you.